I read many of the stories, but one called The Judas Contract in Teen Titans that was about this femme fatale named Tara and how she just ruthlessly took apart the Teen Titans and their friendships and everything else by infiltrating them and turning themselves against each other. And I realized that all these years later, all I've been doing is ripping off Marv. Because all I do is write about groups of friends who, with the right person, who have the right wedge, tear them apart and make them trust their friends in ways. And I know that that influence was there. I love you for being here. I do appreciate it. So, The Escape Artist. I can tell you that this is 20 years. This marks the 20th anniversary of me writing thrillers. 20 years. And listen, I can tell you about the book and what it's about. We'll get to that. But to me, what is almost more interesting is the fact that what do you do with 20 years, right? How do you possibly get better when you've been doing it for 20 years? Because in 20 years, you can just keep doing it, right? You know what you're doing, just keep doing it again. Write another one, the same way you wrote the last one. And that's fine, and I guess that'll pay your bills, but it doesn't make you any better. There's no forward movement. And I don't want to call this book my midlife crisis, but it was my midlife crisis, right? It just was. Because what happened was I just took this long, hard look at, every book I put out I hope is my best, but they can't all be your best. So I really had this look and I said, which of the books and which of the things I've worked on are truly the best, right? And I'm talking about the kids' books, I'm talking about the thrillers, even the TV shows. Which are the ones that really resonate? And when I looked at it, I realized I had one thing in common. It was that character, right? That character at the core, the character people still ask me about, even though it's 20 years later, 18 years later, 17 years later, whatever it might be, 12 years later. And that's what we, right? That's what we all love about the books that we love. Right? That's why we love Harry Potter and Hermione, why we love Atticus, and why we love Scout. Right? Yeah, we all want to go to a magic school and have pet owls. But the reason we love those books is those characters, we just feel like they don't just say something about them, but they tell us something about ourselves. That's what a great character does. And so when I started this book, it really began 6 years ago. I was on a USO trip in the Middle East, and they took me to Kuwait, and they brought 6 authors who would go every year to entertain the troops. And the best part of it is before we got there, the entertainers right before us were the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, the MMA fighters, and then the authors. Right? And my buddy was like, can you take the audible sigh when you walk in the room and then realize that after the cheerleaders is like, oh, here's the literate people. But the nice part of it truly was all the troops that come up to us and say, you know what, I love the country singers, and I certainly love the cheerleaders, but you're the first group that I feel like is here for me, because I'm a reader. And I'm like, oh, my fellow nerd, come be my friend. That's it, right? That's what it is. And I love that we get to do that. It's the best part of it. But when I was there is when Dover first came on my radar. And many of us know, especially in this town, Dover Air Force Base. We know it all too well visually. It's, we see those flag-covered coffins when our fallen troops come back and where they're laid to rest. What I didn't know is that Dover is home to the biggest cases. So when the space shuttle goes down, victims go to Dover. When 9/11 happened, the victims went to Dover on the Pentagon flight. And also, all of our spies across the globe, like when you see at the CIA, when they're standing at the CIA headquarters, you see those stars behind the podium. And each star represents a secret member of the CIA whose name will never be identified, but also fell in the line of service. All their bodies go to Dover too. The people at Dover know exactly who those men and women are. Which means that Dover is a place full of secrets and mysteries. And as a thriller writer, I was like, I gotta go there, right? I was like, I'm gonna go through the front door. If they don't let me in the front door, I'm gonna go around back. I'm gonna get in this place. And amazingly, they let me in. They actually let me in. And the truth was, it was just a place. I didn't think much of it. I was like, I knew it was an important place, but I didn't think, more than just it's a place. It was a transaction. Just like I've been to the White House, I've done the secret tunnels below the White House, I've been in a labyrinth below the Capitol, crawling on my hands and knees. I'll figure it out. I'll go there. I'll write my book, and let's go. And it wasn't a place. When I got there, I was humbled. Humbled. Because, as you know, when families lose their loved ones in the military, sometimes the families don't even believe it until they see it with their own eyes. So what happens in this situation at Dover is you have people that they'll spend 14 hours rewiring someone's jaw and smoothing it over with clay because the family wants to see their child one last time. You'll see that they'll rebuild someone's entire hand Because a mother specifically says she wants to hold her son's hand one last time. Right? We're a country right now, whatever side of politics you're on, we're a country starving for heroes. Right? We look at the other side and we're like, oh my gosh, we're starving for heroes. And I knew in that moment, these are real heroes. These are American heroes. This is the best of us working on the best of us. And I was like, I gotta make them the stars of the show. This is what I'm gonna write about. I knew immediately, 6 years ago, I knew this is gonna be where I need to go. And it took me a while to make my way there. I was finishing another book, but I finally got to go. And what I always do is I try when I write to do as little work as possible, right? Why should I have to create all the great ideas when the people who are experts know it better than I do? So I give my plots to the people who know it best. And the one idea that I had for the escape artist was this, is the idea of a secret note hidden inside someone's body. And I didn't know how to pull it off. I figured out tattoos or something interesting, and I figured they're going to see something way more interesting than I can make up. So when I went there, I said, you know what, how can you do that? How can you hide a note in someone's body? And they said, well, here's one thing you can do. If you're on a plane, and the plane is going down, and your timing's right, if you write a note and you eat the note, the liquids in your stomach can potentially protect that note from the plane crash, right? And I was like, that's a great story. And they were like, it's not just a story, it happened. I was like, what are you talking about? They said it happened. They said they told me this whole story about how they opened up a stomach and there was a note, a secret note hidden inside. And I said, well, what did the note say? And they were like, well, can't actually tell you. And I understand that, right? You understand to respect people's privacy. It had to be someone in the military, right? Because who else in that moment, as your plane is going down to crash, thinks to eat a note to leave for someone else, except for like Batman, right? I mean, who thinks of those things? But what I realized is when I look back on that note, is that whoever wrote that note, they had to have been looking for what we're all looking for, connection, right? We all want to love and be loved. And I can tell you when my parents passed away, one of the few gifts I got in that moment, beside my parents themselves, was I got to say goodbye. That was the gift. I got to say goodbye. And the people at Dover, they called it, they said that this note was the ultimate message in a bottle. I'll never forget those words. And the reason I take hope from that note to this day is because when I think about that note, I just love that it is absolute proof that when we reach out in the universe, and when we send that message in a bottle, that we'll be heard. Right? I love that. And I was like, that's the plot. I got the plot right there. Right? I knew I also got away that next time you're on a plane and you feel some turbulence, you're going to be thinking of me. Right? I know you're going to be thinking of me. Right? You go, oh, crap, perhaps think right, there's no women to write to me. Well, fine. You're going to be thinking, if you think I'm joking, you're going to be on that plane, it's going to be shaking, you're going to be thinking of me. Oh man, that ball guy jumped, I'm going to think of him. That I should not be what I thought I will be. And, but I knew that was the plot. I got it. There's the plot. And I've been at it 20 years. I know what to do. I can start writing that day. And I've been at it long enough where I can build the boat as I'm sailing the boat. I know what I'm doing. But I said to myself, don't do it. Right? I knew the plot of the book. Right? I'm going to have this woman. Her name is Nola, one of my favorite characters. Nola's going to be dead. The government says she died in a plane crash. They bring her body to Dover. They open her body up, and inside her stomach is a note. And the note says, Nola, you were right. Keep running. I realized Nola's not dead. She's alive. She's on the run. She's the escape artist. I just ruined chapter 1 of the book for you, by the way. But that's the plot. Again, I'll figure it out. And I said, don't start the book. Not until you have Nola. As much as you want to wait. And for those who don't know, we have this show that was on the air called Lost History. It's actually called Brad Meltzer's Lost History, greatest title of all time, as far as I'm concerned. Brad Meltzer's Decoded. I said to my wife the other day, I was like, honey, what are we having for Brad Meltzer's dinner tonight? Because yesterday we had Brad Meltzer's chicken, and tonight I'd like to have Brad Meltzer's pasta. And she was like, you can go sleep on Brad Meltzer's couch. Everyone's laughing except for Jessica. She knows my wife and knows that is true. That's true. And we were recording the show, and the very first episode we were searching for the 9/11 flag that the firefighters raised at Ground Zero. And we were lucky enough to actually find the flag. We got to unveil it. It's in the 9/11 museum right now. We got to unveil it on the 15th anniversary of 9/11. Once in a lifetime chance. But what I never told anyone is as we were filming that first episode, they were giving me a tour. The cameras were setting up, and they were giving me a tour of this military museum while we were filming. And in this museum, They were showing me their collection. And they had paintings done by Adolf Hitler. They had paintings that were done by these top military people. And I just kept thinking, why does the army have all this art? It made no sense. And I found out, this is true, that since World War I, the U.S. Army has had a painter, an actual painter on staff, who actually paints disasters as they happen. Right? That's the job. And whether it's storming the beaches of Normandy, whether it's Vietnam, whether it's 9/11, that's who was there. There was always a painter there who was racing in. And I'm like, you're telling me, while everyone else is racing in with guns blazing, that we have a guy who races in with nothing but paintbrushes in their pockets? Like, that's the craziest person I've ever heard. I want to make him a character. I said, you know what? I want to meet him. I want to meet him. And they said to me, you mean her. You want to meet her. Right? My bias got the best of me. And as soon as they said her, you want to meet her? I was like, I had the character. There was Nola. Nola was born in that moment. And I was like, yes, I want to meet her. And when I met the real Sergeant Brown, I named her after the real Sergeant Brown, I realized that artists see things very differently than the rest of us. Completely differently. A few years ago, when I was doing Justice League, a dear friend, Gene Ha, who's one of our amazing artists, came down to Florida. We had dinner together. And he said, I'm so glad I got to sit with you face to face. I now know so much more about you. Just seeing you. And I was like, well, what do you need to see? I'm like, we're friends. That, we know each other. And he's basically explained to me that he rattles off a list of all these things that I don't even realize that I'm doing. And I'm not talking about the obvious things, my little tics, but like these things I didn't even realize I did. He saw them. He knew exactly what they were. He sees the world as an artist different than the rest of us. And my friend Chip Kidd, who's a graphic designer, we all see a stop sign. What Chip sees is the greatest representation of graphic design ever created, something that can be read in any language, anywhere in the world. Right? He sees the world differently than the rest of us. And I knew right there was Nola. She sees things differently. She sees which way your belt buckle is facing, because she knows then if you're a righty or a lefty, depending on which way you pull it. She sees that you have crow's feet on only one eye, because that's your hunter, and that's the eye you aim with. She sees that when you walk past a reflective surface, you always check yourself, because you're vain. She sees your weaknesses, and that's Nola. Just sees your weaknesses immediately. And I knew that was the character. Someone who could just see right to your soul, right to your core, that thing that makes you weak, that thing that is just you hide from everyone. You hope no one knows. She finds it instantly. She knows exactly where it is, because she has so many holes in her life that have eaten into her that she knows exactly how to find them. And we all know that anyone who tends to run to a disaster is usually running from a disaster too. And so now I had it, right? I have Zig, who has this hole in his life, surrounded by death every day at Dover. I have Nola, who has a hole in hers. And then I have this little detail. In 1898, a man named John Elbert Wilkie is put in charge of the Secret Service. He's a magician. He actually loves doing magic tricks himself. He's a friend of Harry Houdini. It is the only time in history that a magician is in control of the Secret Service. And I friggin' love that, right? I mean, I had that for years. I was sitting on that, just going, how do I use it? How do I put that somewhere? And it's not about just ramming information in a book and saying, I found some arcane knowledge. I'm going to shove it in this book and impress people with it. It's like, that's not a thriller. That's an encyclopedia. It has to fit. It has to make sense. It has to thematically work its way in so that it just seems seamless, like it was meant to be there. And I couldn't find it. For books and books, I could not find it. And finally, I just kept researching Harry Houdini's life. And one of the things that I found was Harry Houdini had his own Secret Service. And they weren't protective, but he used them secretly. I mean, that's why you call them the Secret Service, right? But what he would do is he would send them to town 2 weeks before he would get there. And they would come to the town, and they would look and see what type of handcuffs the cops used. They'd see what kind of locks are on the jail cells. And then Harry Houdini would come to town 2 weeks later, and he would say, I'm Harry Houdini, lock me up. You can use your own handcuffs, you can put me in your own jail, and I will be free. And of course he would, because they gave him the key 2 weeks earlier, right? They got the key and they gave it to Harry Houdini. That's how he did it. His Secret Service did all the major parts of the trick, and then he looked like the mad genius, which made me think, I gotta get my own Secret Service. Right? I'm getting my own Secret Service. I got it. Who doesn't want a Secret Service? And he had this amazing, the great thing that Harry Houdini did is sleight of hand. Right? That was it. There's 4 types of magic tricks in the world. Right? There's making something appear, there's making something disappear, There's making two things switch place, but there's taking one thing and turning it into something else, something that transforms. I love that. I love that. And I found out that Harry Houdini was also obsessed with death. He was so obsessed with death because he lost his mother, never got over it. And so one of the things he did is he used to hate fake mediums who used to do seances. Hated it. Because he thought they were preying on people's loved ones. And they were. Back then, it was right after World War I. Buried so many sons and daughters no more. And there were all these people, it was called spiritualism. And it sounds so dumb now, right? So silly. But we fell for Miss Cleo, right? We fell for, you know, anyone laughing, you dialed that number for Miss Cleo. I know who you are. You revealed yourselves. And I can tell you that he used to hate it. So half of his act was doing the great trick, the great escape, right? Lock my hands up, throw me underwater, I'll figure my way out. But the other part of his act was showing these fakers. Right? He hated the fact that they were going on. There's a seance, I hear your son, he's telling me a message, and give me $10 more and I'll tell you what that message is. He hated it. But Harry Houdini used to spend his time doing that in the act. But here's the part that I loved, is that Harry Houdini also gave all of his loved ones secret passwords. Passwords that if they died, if his friends, if his mom, his family died, a password only the two of them would know. And the two of them would have that word, so if there was a seance, and someone said they were coming back from death to life, that Harry Houdini would know, they have the word, they'll only know this is the real deal. So I love that he's like, I don't believe any of this nonsense. But just in case I'm wrong, here's your password, right? And the word that Harry Houdini picked for his mother, the secret word he left for her, was supposedly this single word: forgive. Forgive. The most potent words in the English language. Right? And I realized right there, that's where it all came together. I had Zig, surrounded by death. I had Nola, racing into disasters, all those holes in her life. I had Harry Houdini, obsessed with death, all the holes in his life. For every single one of us here today, every single one of us, the one thing we haven't done, we all have a disaster that just put us in that crater. That thing we needed to crawl out of, right? It may be addiction, it may be abuse, it may be we lost a loved one, a parent, a family member, someone who screwed us over, whatever it might be that puts us in that hole that we need to climb out. We have to claw our way out, we have to come back to life. And I realized it all starts with that one thing that Harry Houdini taught: forgive. Of course, starting with yourself. And right there in that moment, I knew, instead of having three different pieces, all of the pieces formed one picture, and the escape artist was truly born. That's where it came together. And that's the book. I've ruined it all for you. That's it. But that tells you what the escape artist is about. What I love to do is, of course, open it to questions, because it makes every single night that I've been doing this completely different. You can ask about whatever you want. You can ask about, of course, the book. Just don't spoil the ending. You can ask about comic books, you can ask about TV shows, you can ask about the kids' books, you can ask about, listen, I write fiction, you can ask about open heart surgery, I'll make up an answer. But please ask some questions, and then let's see where we can take this, and we'll have some fun with it. And anyone brave who's going to be the first one? Someone. Who's going to be it? Yes? Go ahead. No, wait, they're all behind you. That's not going to be first. No. Now you feel bad, you stomp on that little boy's heel. I hope you're happy, sir. She's crying behind you now. I hope you're happy. What's the what?
Like, what would be, like, besides the alarm strong, what would be another book that you...
Okay, so what, you want to know what the next Diane books are?
Yeah.
Oh, right. I appreciate it. Thank you for watching. By the way, she watched this live stream where we actually, we live streamed from our house, and we flew a real drone in our house, and we almost murdered our dog. So thank you for nearly watching my death on your computer. I appreciate that very much. Thank you for that. So the question is about the I Am books. And for those who don't know, I do a line of kids' books too, because nothing goes better with murder and death than children's books. Nothing. I appreciate you bringing your child here. All the nightmares you're going to have tonight, those are all free. So, this book series started because I was tired of my own kids looking at reality TV show stars and people who are famous for being famous and thinking that that's a hero. Right? 6 years ago, I was like, we can do so much better than that. We have so many people that we can show our kids to look up to, rather than what they're being fed every day. Loudmouth athletes, right? I mean, it just was enough. So we started with I'm Amelia Earhart and I am Abraham Lincoln. We got Rosa Parks and Albert Einstein. My son loves sports. I was like, you want to see what a real athlete, a real hero athlete looks like? I wrote I Am Jackie Robinson for him, right? You know, right around here, right? Local boy, not that far from here, UCLA. And again, I was selfish about it. It was for my kids. My daughter, again, local, I did I Am Lucille Ball because I wanted my daughter to have someone who was an entertainment hero, a female one, who wasn't just famous for being thin and pretty. And Lucy stands for the idea it's okay to be different. In fact, it's fantastic to be different. The one thing we all have in common is we're all different. And she also loves our dog. And so I did I'm Jane Goodall just for her. Because I wanted to show her, here's what a female scientist looks like. Someone who takes her love of animals and changes her life and our lives with it. And my youngest son is our creative one. Loves to draw. And I did I Am Jim Henson for him. And for me, when I was 5 years old, Jim Henson on Sesame Street taught me that you could use your creativity to put good into this world. And if I'm doing anything here today, I hope it is I'm just using my creativity to try and put good into this world. But something amazing happened a year ago as the election was approaching, the presidential election. Hillary and Donald Trump were trying to murder each other on television every night. And we're all rooting them on, picking our sides. And something amazing happened. Is suddenly 2 books of ours started selling like crazy. And they were I Am George Washington and I Am Martin Luther King Jr. And what it wasn't a Democrat or Republican thing, right? We all want to claim the good side. But what it really was is parents and grandparents on both sides were tired of putting on the TV and seeing politicians when they wanted to show their kids and grandkids were heroes. We all know there's a huge difference between a politician and a leader, right? We've got to show our kids leaders. And we've got to teach them about compassion and how to treat other people. And humility. Remember when humility was a good thing? Right? These are what our books are about, is trying to give those values back to the country when we need them so badly. It was really people fighting back with our books with these lessons of Rosa Parks and Dr. King, showing kindness to each other. We did Gandhi, Sacagawea, amazing people to look up to. And I love that we get to do that. And so to answer your question the question is what's coming next? So we're doing I Am Neil Armstrong is the next book. And I love this book because Neil Armstrong is who our artist Chris Eliopoulos, he's been waiting to do him since the first book. He didn't even want to do I Am Abraham Lincoln because he liked Neil Armstrong more, and I was like, you're a bad person. Because Abraham Lincoln is so awesome, but he wanted to do Armstrong. So we're finally working on Neil Armstrong. And Chris just, I just got really, really into it, right? We love doing this. We're doing space. And we're doing, Chris drew every rivet on every rocket, and every nut, and every bolt. I mean, they're all there. And we sent it to friends at NASA, right? We were like, these are friends who used to work at NASA. We're like, tell us what you think of the book. Here's the book. And NASA, the people from NASA came back, who used to work there, and said to us, you guys are such nerds. And when NASA calls you a nerd, that's like next level, right? That's like the boss level of the game. And I was like, oh, bring it, baby. I love that. And I'll tell you something, don't put this on social media. I always want to have something that, you come here, and I so appreciate you coming here and buying tickets and coming and buying books. So I'm only telling this to people who come to the event. So anyone else out there who doesn't come, we hate them, right? We hate them. And we love the people who come with us. So this is what we're doing in Neil Armstrong, is when I want to do that scene where, you're in outer space, and he gets to turn around and take that picture. The famous photograph right from the moon to the earth, and the earth is just vast in front of you, expanded in front of you, and it just has to feel so big, and we don't know how to do it. And then we have the idea, you'll see when you turn the page, you're reading the book, and then he looks back, and the whole book is a gatefold, and it opens up, and the whole book opens up, and you see the entire earth below, and it is spectacular. And I love that. That's going to be a surprise for obviously anyone who reads it. I ruined that for you too. So, but you know first, which we know is always better. And that's Neil Armstrong. And after that, we are not announced. We're going to announce next week who the next one is. And I had this kid, this little boy at one of my first signings who said he knows that we hide. I don't know if you know this. In every book, we hide the next hero, and we also hide the number 27. He hides me in every book. I'm like the bald, where's Waldo now? And we also hide Superman in every book. Or Clark Kent. If you're a lawyer from DC Comics, it's totally not Superman or Clark Kent. Just a lawyer has glasses. But this kid stood up at the first signing and said, what hero is in the book in I Am Neil Armstrong? And I was like, oh, that is some next level stuff right there. That is like some jujitsu chess playing, right? He wanted to know who the hidden person was. I was like, I'm not telling you, little boy, ever. You're punished, go home. And so, but if you come up here after, I'm going to whisper it just to you, because you asked the first question, you were the brave one, okay? I'm going to tell you the details on this, okay? And since you asked, so I'll tell you this, these are the next projects that are coming, just so we can continue with the theme. The next I Am project that is coming comes in May, and we're doing I Am Gandhi, but we're doing it as a comic book. We already did it as a kid's book. And on election night, I was watching the country rip itself apart, ruthlessly go at each other. And I just was sick to my stomach of it, right? Just watching us in this kind of new civil war that we're in, where we just hate each other. And I had just written I Am Gandhi, and I gave it to my son. It had no pictures, it was just a script. And I gave it to my at that point, 15-year-old, and I was like, you need to read this. This is how you're supposed to treat people, not with venom. And there's this line in the book that says, Gandhi hated his arch nemesis, the person who threw him in jail, had him arrested over and over, is this guy named General Smuts. And the general, again, Gandhi shouldn't hate this man. The general certainly hates Gandhi, and Gandhi eventually makes a pair of his own sandals, and he gives it to the general. The general's like, what is this for? And Gandhi says, better to make friends than to make enemies. Let me just say that again in current context of where we're living, right? Better to make friends than to make enemies. And I know it's hard sometimes because you look at the other side and you're like, oh, I hate them, right? But we have to be better than that. Be better than what angers you. And I needed my son to hear that lesson. But because he's 16, now 16 years old, he's not going to read the kids' book, right? I need that lesson. All of us need that lesson. But again, you may not buy it. We sell a lot of kids' books to adults who want them, but I was like, how do we put that lesson out there? So I called up DC Comics, and I called up Marvel Comics, and they helped me rate their Rolodexes. And I basically rewrote it in a comic book format, the same script, and then we hired the top comic book artists. We got Bill Sienkiewicz, and we got David Mack, and we got John Cassaday, and we got Bill Jimenez. It's like a murderer's row of great artists. And all of us are doing it for free. All the money goes to charity. No one makes a single dollar on it. It all goes to Seeds of Peace. Not something that's political, but something that actually stands, that when we stand together, we actually are stronger. So that comes out in May. I Am Gandhi, the graphic novel comes out, again, all for charity. We love that we're doing that. I appreciate that. Thank you. Also in May, I'm doing the next book that will come out is Superman. I'm doing Action Comics number 1000. Thank you, I appreciate it. And I love that I get to do that. And the best part of that is my big demand in doing the script is I said, I want, I love doing the kids' books. I love doing the thrillers. The Escape Artist is just my favorite book I've written in years. And for when I write Superman, and I can put words in Superman's mouth, I'm wearing my underwear on the outside of my pants. There's no doubt. The thing is I really am, because one of the things I demanded in the script is I said, if I'm doing it, I'm bringing back the red trunks. I want him to wear the underwear on the outside of his pants, because you saw it in the movie and in the comics for a while, he's just had like this unitard. And I'm like, no. Superman wears his underwear on the outside of his pants and his red trunks. And I think Marv is doing a story too. And the best part of it is I thought I was such a tough guy that I made this demand to have his red trunks come back. And I feel like nearly every person who is writing, Marv is writing for that too, but nearly every one of us also asked for Superman to have his red underwear back. So I just love that we've been like working so hard, we're so committed to the craft, and all we care about is that he's wearing his underwear on the outside of his pants. And I even wrote in the script, I'm like, if they don't say yes, I said to John Cassaday, I'm like, if they say no, don't draw him from the waist down ever in the story, because he is wearing his underwear on the outside of his pants. We're all going to know it except, and he's like, I'll hide it with the cape, don't worry, he's totally wearing the underwear on the outside. But he will be wearing his underwear on the outside, and thanks to Bendis and everyone else working on it. So underwear is back, people, I hope you're back. I also appreciate that he's not louder for Superman's underwear than for my novels, so thank you very much for that. I hope it's happy. And then the other last project that I'll tell you about is one also we haven't announced, but I wanted to announce at the Science first. And it's our first ever adult nonfiction book. And it's based on a real life story that I found about George Washington. And I found it's literally a plot against George Washington. Some say to kill him, some say to kidnap him. And it's a real story. Right at the beginning of the Revolutionary War in New York, and one of the she clearly, that baby loves George Washington. And what happens is they come for George Washington. They're coming to get him. This is it. And when George Washington finds out about it, He actually rounds up who's responsible, takes the head person in charge, brings together 20,000 troops, and in front of all of them, hangs him. And in the largest public execution in, at that point, North American history. George Washington brings the hammer down. He's like, I am George Washington. Do not mess with me. Put me on the dollar bill. Washington out. Right? That's a direct quote from George Washington. I mean, his was like, I kind of lied. He said, put me on ye old dollar bill. But otherwise, it's exactly like that. And all kidding aside, it is a real story that happened. And it's amazing. And the book is called The First Conspiracy, The Secret Plot Against George Washington, and the Birth of the Counterintelligence Movement. Because what you see after that moment is we almost lost. And they hid the story, because they didn't want anyone to know that they went after the big man, because that's just a sign of weakness. And we are literally reading through, no one's written a book about it. We're going through the original paperwork ourselves. And it's an incredible, true story. And I'm doing it with my friend Josh Mensch, who used to work with us on Lost History. On Brad Meltzer's Lost History. And we're doing this, the first conspiracy comes out in January. And then after that, I'm taking a nap, and then I'm done. Okay, other questions? Ask away. Yes, the other one.
So what was the authors that influenced you while growing up?
Yeah, the question is, what are the authors that influenced me? One of them, by far, was Judy Blume. I love Judy Blume. I always loved reading Agatha Christie. That was my first murder mystery. But Judy Blume was the one who just did it for me. Right? Judy Blume, I remember reading Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret. And I just thought it was like an instruction manual for girls. Right? I was like, they're going to explain to me how they work, and I'm going to figure it out. This book is going to get my girlfriend. Like, that was it. And I love Judy Blume. I still love Judy Blume. And so that was kind of the first ones in terms of book format. But the other one is sitting right here, Mark Wolfman. Was one of my heroes writing. He really was. And when I was reading and growing up, those were the first comments where I didn't just read the book, but I cared. Right? It just got me in my gut. It was Alan Moore and Paul Levitz writing Legion of Superheroes. It was the comic books that I loved. And those stories, I realized how much of an influence they had on me. I know I write about Superman and Batman and Abraham Lincoln and George Washington, and they're all the same to me. Right? I know, and of course acknowledge that two of them really existed and two of them did not, but they are all four of them icons of America. They're symbols of America. Right? They're the best of us in that weird version. They really are. And like any good story, the best characters, they don't just tell us a story about them, they tell us something about us. We're a country founded on our legends and myths. And the legends and myths we love most are our own. And to me, that's why I love Superman, right? The most important part of the story is not Superman. The most important part of the story is Clark Kent. Because we're all Clark Kent. We all know what it's like to be boring and ordinary and wish we could do something incredibly beyond ourselves. And those are the stories that I loved. And all I'm doing right to this day is my first comic ever was Justice League of America.